Hello, hello, hello. What's up, everybody? This is Mia Hall TV. I am here with another episode of Brown Girls Glow Live. Yep, you can catch us here every Wednesday. And Happy New Year. This is my first live of the new year. So I'm happy to be coming to you. And of course, bringing you some more tips for teenage girls because that is who it is. 2026 is the year of the teenage girl. So Brown Girls Glow Live is a show that really highlights, different tips and tools and tricks that women like me or myself have learned that weren't maybe necessarily taught in high school. And we're passing down those gems. What we wish somebody would have taught us, we're passing it on to the next generation. And so before the new year began, I was going through my book and I'm going through all of the chapters and just breaking down, the different topics that I talk about, right? So in chapter 6, one of my favorite chapters, it is called Shining Through Service. And I thought that this would be a really important topic to talk about because volunteering has really gotten me a lot of places, especially when I was younger. I don't know about when I'm older. You have to, you still want to put in work and you still sometimes have to do things for free, but, it's not in the same way, right? So what I talk about here is how community service has been the cornerstone of my personal and professional growth. I had so many opportunities because of volunteer service and just really it's really not only helping you to gain skill. Volunteer service helps you to network and it helps you to figure out what you want to do, like on your way to finding your purpose and figuring out, okay, what are my gifts and talents and abilities? You're like, oh, some people can sing and they already know that they can sing and that's just their gift. Like, that's not me. Well, that wasn't me either. So I had to volunteer at different things and, go to different places in order to find out what my gift was. So that's what I did. And so I am going to talk a little bit about the stories that I put in here. So one of the first opportunities or places that I learned this, was an after school program. And this is really why I studied education so that I'm going live. So this is why I am looking on my phone because I'm going to go live on TikTok.
Thank you, Belinda. Hey, if you guys are new here, my name is Anthony Antoine, news anchor in Houston.
That is not smart. Okay. So yes, one of the first places where I learned about volunteering was Power Play NYC. So I believe that it really was just by action and what I saw that happened because of that action. And really, I didn't even volunteer. I can't even say that because I didn't volunteer there, but because I did get paid. So the first year of college finished, and that summer I had an opportunity to work at the Power Play Leadership Academy. They started this STARS Leadership Academy where I think it was just 2 weeks in the summertime, young high school girls were able to go through pretty much what we did in Power Play after school. They did for 2 weeks in Manhattan. And it was actually great. I love the STARS Leadership Academy. They still do it to this day. And in that time is where I got to meet. First of all, I met Karen Buchholz, who I talk about in the book, was one of my favorite mentors, but one of my first mentors, really. And I met her. And of course, that's where I met a lot of other people that I saw that worked at the Knicks. And, it was just opened my eyes to, honestly, the position, Vice President of Community Development. And I think it was in fan relations. Yeah, I think it was fan relations and community development. And that was the first time that I heard somebody talk about sports outside of being a gym teacher. So in high school, I know this is a little bit of a backstory, but you're getting the backstory to the backstories that are in the book. So I met Karen, and I remember always saying, like, I wanted to work in sports, but I also liked business. And I also liked students. Like, I like children. I like working with the youth. And everybody was like, oh, you'd be a great gym teacher. Like, people told me this. And when I met Karen, it was like she was in sports, she was working with youth, but she was on the business side. And I was like, huh, nothing against physical education teachers, of course, because I was a gym teacher in some capacities at Power Play. So would never speak against gym teachers, but that's not what I wanted to do. And when I met Karen, I was like, oh, I can do this. Like, this is the part of sports. Because I had known about sports careers in high school from joining Power Play. But, you know, um, meeting her, I was able to see, okay, this is another field. Now, that is what I'm talking about when how these, either low paying or volunteer positions, can lead you to finding out what you want to do, because that's how I found out, hey, I want to work in community relations in sports. That's when I saw her, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And yeah, invited her out to lunch, and the rest was history. Got an internship at the Knicks 2 years later. So that is one of the things that I did. And I talk about in the book how I really got my first job. And I say through service, because really when you're working for a nonprofit, you're really doing it most of the time for the service, because you're not in it for the money. That's why they call it a nonprofit. You're not in it for the money. You're in it for a service. And so that's what I did my first year after college. I interned at a production company called Brooklyn to Manhattan. That was the name of the movie that it was um, based off. I think the movie has changed now, so you can't like see it now. But yeah, I worked on that, and I worked part time at Power Play NYC. So at Power Play, I was, like I said, a gym teacher. I was a program coordinator, and yeah, and a coach. Basically, I went to different schools and things like that. So when they had the opportunity for me to speak, I was like, I got to take this seriously, because I remember my mentor saying that you have to take, your speeches seriously. She had gotten every job before then from a speech that she did at another program. And so I was like, all right, well, I need a job, and I need a job now too. So I need to go out and speak some places and take them seriously. And so basically I was at this fundraiser for Power Play NYC. It was basically like their first fundraiser. And the president of the WNBA was there. And that president said, hey, she heard me speak. And after I spoke, just about how Power Play helped me to dream big, take my education seriously, and get mentors to help me to accomplish my dreams, she said, anybody that could speak like that about their organization should work with me. So Mia, I want you on my team. And like in front of everybody, like in front of the big crowd, she was just like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, Mia, I want you to work for my team. So I was like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, wow, like getting to work at the WNBA, because I used to want to be a WNBA player. But, that day from that service, she's serving, at probably NYC for almost a year at that point. I was able to, basically a year to the date when I graduated, I was able to start working at the WNBA. And that was like that wasn't like my first corporate, that was my first corporate like for-profit business job. Working at the WNBA, which was great, which is why I stayed in sports for so long, and why I want to go to NBA All-Star Weekend in Los Angeles this February, a month away from today, but we'll see. So that's how I really got started. And I go on to talk about, I already talked about the benefits, but that's the glitter dust that I give here. And really about Devon Franklin. He says that you are to carry a crown before you wear one. He has a whole chapter in his book on the 10 Hollywood Commandments on that. And I thought that it was so important, and just a great way to put it. He talks about how he used to work with Will Smith for a long time. And he talks about, how he used to be driving, him around, and the other producer at that company. And that's really where he got his start. You know what I mean? So we have to sometimes we have to take those jobs that are, maybe they pay a little bit less, but they're still in the career that we want to be in. And so that will still lead us to the experience, getting the connections, getting the contacts that we need in order to get us our dream job, to get you your dream career. Because that's what people want. People don't want to work and hate their work. Work is going to take up so much of our lives. We don't want to work somewhere where we hate or where we dread going to work. It's something that we do in order to make an impact in the world, right? We want to make an impact on the world. There's so much happening internationally, definitely nationally, definitely locally, right? So we want to do something that makes an impact in the world. And we want to do something that is also fun or fulfilling, and something where we feel like, yes, I'm using my gifts, talents, and abilities to move the needle forward on world peace. You know what I mean? So this is why sometimes we might have to take less pay, especially when starting out. I'm talking to high school students, okay, to do a job. Now, if I'm also talking to people that are transitioning, right? I transitioned from sports into media in 2016. And I had to, actually, thankfully, was able to get an associate producer position, which is usually not, the case. But, thank God, through my network, strong network in New York. Shout out to Gabby and Gabrielle. Strong network in New York. I was able to get a job with NBC. Like, that is unheard of. But I wanted to work, with social justice. I wanted to work in media, and I was able to get a job at NBC BLK, the Black channel for NBC. Like, that is a whole nother testimony that I don't even talk about in the book, but I don't talk about it. I probably talked about it on the podcast before, but I'll talk about it another time because that's a whole nother story. But that was a position that did pay. It paid okay. And then being able to go from that to California, I definitely took a pay cut going to California because I was like, I'm moving to California. I didn't have a job, but I knew I wanted to be there, to be in that atmosphere, right? At the end of 2017, moved to California, and I was just working odd jobs for 6.5 months. And then in mid-July, thankfully, somebody called me and said that they had a position open at, Steve Harvey's talk show. And the rest was history from there. I worked with Steve Harvey for about 6 years after that. So just left in 2023 so that I could go to film school. Again, thought I was going to be able to go back, but I did not. And so in 2024 is when I basically started my full-time entrepreneurial journey. And so now I have been working as an entrepreneur, working as a podcast producer, and I'm going to have to take some of those, less jobs, or and also I'm doing this for free, right? I'm building up my content. I am doing, my own podcast, so that I'm putting in those hours. I'm not carrying anybody's crown, but I am basically practicing, right, for things that don't cost me, or making an investment, right? An investment of time and investment. I mean, I invested in my ring light, invested in this microphone. in order to set myself up to be in media, because that's what I love. That's the way that I believe that I can fight for social justice, through storytelling. I know that I'm a storyteller, and I know that when you can tell stories of, people from either marginalized communities, you can tell stories, even about people that are facing unjust, issues. You can bring that to light, and then they can get the help that they need, right? So I feel like I'm a conduit, a medium, right? To be able to inspire, educate, and empower people. And so that's what I'm doing right now. So shine through service. I wanted to, give you all a quick overview of what that means to me. I didn't talk about here, but I talk about in the book, when I was able to go to Black Enterprise Women of Power Conference, which is coming up again. They have their 20th anniversary, I believe. So I was able to volunteer at the Women of Power Summit, and I was able to meet some people there. And I gained two mentors, that were just phenomenal women. Both were on the cover of Black Enterprise, and both were CEOs of major, one was a major nonprofit. That was Joy Gordon, who I love, and the other one was, I think she was CEO at Amway International, which was huge. She took me to Greenwich, Connecticut, and that volunteer opportunity at Black Enterprise helped me to meet Joy, which, we just became locked in, and she became an amazing mentor of mine. And then the other woman, Candace Matthews, she invited me to her home in Greenwich, Connecticut with, and then she had a party, small gathering of her friends. And I was able to meet a friend of hers who was able to connect me with her husband, who was looking for a nonprofit to give, money to. And I was able to secure $15,000 for PowerPlay NYC, literally just like that. She was like, oh, I was telling her about the organization, and she was like, oh, my husband, he works for a company. They have to give out this money every year. It was, I thank God for her too. But, all of that was because I volunteered at the, Women of Power Summit. So, man, put yourself out there. I know that was probably almost 15 years ago. It could have been longer. And I believe those same principles still apply today. So I'm going to use them. I hope that you use them. I hope that they are helpful. And I hope to see you next week on Brown Girls Glow Live. Until then, keep glowing, keep shining, and keep elevating. Peace.